Is Easter a pagan holiday? I hear people say that it is every single year, but I'd like to say not so fast. We need to look at the evidence for that. The typical claim is that Easter, which was first called Pascha by Christians, is derived from the pagan god of fertility, Eostre, in the ancient Germanic culture. But the problem with this is there's almost no evidence that supports this claim. You see, the first mention of the goddess of Eostre was around 700 years after Jesus by St Bede, a Christian, and further, there are no other historical accounts that verify his claim. Where the term Easter likely came from was from the 4th month of the English calendar called Eosturmonath. Given that Easter was also a spring celebration in the month of Eosturmonath, they most likely named it after the month, and it was eventually shortened to Easter over time. St Bede made his claim that the name of the month, Eosturmonath, came from the goddess of Esther, but there are two key points here to consider about this holiday being named after the month Eosturmonath. First of all, we have no other evidence to confirm St Bede's claim that this month roots back to an ancient goddess, because his mention is the first one we have in all of history. And second, even if it was the case that the holiday was named after the month, naming a holiday after the month it's in doesn't mean that they're taking on the root of the name. Just like the 4th of July doesn't mean the United States is rooting its Independence Day celebration in Julius Caesar, after whom the month is named. Next is the bunny. A lot of people like to claim that the bunny represents Eostre, the fertility goddess. What we need to keep in mind here is that the first historical connection of a bunny to Easter came way after the mention of Esther in a German book from the year 1572. This was 1.5 millennium after the first observance of Easter. But not only is this well over 1,000 years later, but there is not one shred of evidence that ties the bunny to St. Bede's lonely historical claim that Easter is rooted in some goddess named Esther. We have no other indication that bunnies were being used at Easter any time before the late 1500s, or that these bunnies somehow connected to a fertility goddess. So where did the bunnies come from in the holiday of Easter? Probably from bunnies' more prominent appearance during spring, when their mating season begins, and that's when Easter is. Lastly is the eggs. It's often claimed that eggs tie back to the fertility goddess of Esther, but there is literally no evidence whatsoever to support this. Even St. Bede makes no mention of this. The first appearance of the use of eggs in Easter is in the 1200s, when King Edward I of England prepared 450 decorated eggs for his guests to celebrate Easter. So if not from the fertility goddess, where did the eggs come from? The use of eggs is probably rooted in the Christian practice of Lent, where people abstain from eating dairy, meat, and eggs for 40 days. And since Lent usually ends just before Easter, as part of Easter, they likely prepared hard-boiled eggs as part of the celebration, breaking the fast. So, is Easter a pagan holiday? The evidence says it probably isn't.